Hi, my name's Tim, and this is my story, at least part of it. I was brought up in a small village in Surrey, called Bletchingley. I lived on a council estate with my mum and dad and brother, and life was good. And about maybe 4 or 5 years old, someone came and knocked on the door one day, and it was a young couple, and they said to my mum, "We're starting a Sunday school down the road in the school. Have you got any children that would like to come along?" And now my brother and I were standing behind my mum, and my mum said, "Well, it's up to them. If they want to go, they can." You see, we weren't actually Christians. Although we'd say we were, if anyone asked, we'd say we were C of E, but we never went to church apart from weddings and funerals. That was it, basically. And we knew about Jesus, but we didn't really know much about Jesus. We had our own ideas, basically, or my parents did. At that age, I didn't have many ideas at all. After they'd gone, my mum talked to us about the Sunday school, and I thought this sounded like a great idea, because I'd always been up for something new, a bit of a challenge or whatever. Anyway, we went along to the next Sunday school, and I just loved it. Now, my brother went along for a couple of weeks and didn't really take to it, and so didn't come much more. But I went every week, and I just loved it. I was so excited by the stories of Jesus. You know, they were telling stories about this Jesus who walked on water, who opened the eyes of the blind, raised the dead, healed the sick. It's just incredible. And for me, it just got me so excited. And so I kept going along to this Sunday school week after week after week. And it was great. Really, really enjoyed it. And then as I got a little bit older, I don't know what happened, but I sort of drifted away and drifted out of that sort of thing. I think part of the problem was that my family were very involved in spiritualism, that sort of thing. My gran was supposed to be able to tell fortunes and curse people, which isn't a great thing. My aunt was supposed to be psychic. My dad was supposed to be psychic. And when I came along, everyone was saying, "Oh, Tim's psychic as well." Well, I didn't really know much about what it was all about, but it was all that sort of thing that we were involved in rather than church. Although I'd heard these stories about Jesus, you know, we didn't seem to think it was wrong doing all this other stuff. In fact, we used to go along quite a lot to a thing on a Sunday night, a Christian spiritualist church, thinking that this maybe was the way to go, which I have to say it wasn't. Well, as I got older, I left school. I did really badly at school. I really didn't try. I didn't enjoy school at all. And so I thought I wasn't going to help the teachers by working. And so I left school at 16, I think it was, with absolutely no exams at all. It was embarrassing, to be honest. My teachers made fun of me because I just didn't try. And I was hopeless, basically. Anyway, I fell into a job in photography, and I loved it. And I trained to be a photographer for 4 years. And I worked really hard and just really enjoyed it. It was a great life for me. Really enjoyed the whole process, and started doing heavy industrial photography, working for people like Air Products, British Leyland, doing really heavy profile stuff. Anyway, after 4 years there, training and working my way up until I was the main photographer there, I left and went and worked for a company called Linkhouse Publications in Croydon. They publish leisure magazines like Do It Yourself magazine, Exchange and Mart, Custom Car, Cars and Car Conversion, Small Boat magazine, Caravan magazine, Mobile Home, all these sorts of things. And I worked there for 4 years. Now, while I was there, a chap came and worked with us. Now, I'd never really met a Christian apart from these people when I was 4 or 5 years old. But he said he was a genuine Christian. The only trouble was I really struggled with him. He was a nice enough guy, but in this photographic department where I worked, we were all a pretty seedy bunch. And this chap, he wanted to be part of the group, so he tried to be as bad as us. Only it didn't really work. Certainly not for me, because I just found I couldn't cope with him, because I didn't mind him being a Christian, but I didn't want him to be a hypocrite. I wanted him to stand up for what he believed in. So because of this, I persecuted him unmercifully. He would go off to the Louvre for a skive with a book, and I'd know he was going up there, and I saw him one day going up there, and I'd got a tin of lighter fuel because we used it in the studio to clean the glass before we photographed things on it. And anyway, I found which cubicle it was in, squirted the petrol underneath the door, and threw a match in, and all I could hear was as he was trying to blow it out. Now, I thought this was hilarious, and everyone else in the photographic department thought it was hilarious. But it's so dangerous and really ridiculous. And then there was a day when I saw him going off early, and I thought, oh, well, he's going off for a skive maybe. And we used to have big bags of, photographic paper, and I got one of these empty bags, which was 2016 in size, and I filled it with water, screwed up the top, and waited at the window for him to come out below, because we were up on the 5th floor. And his car was parked underneath in the car park. And he was wearing a blue shirt that day, and I thought, well, when he comes out, I'll drop this on him, have a bit of fun. And this guy came out with a blue shirt, and I dropped the bag, and it landed just behind him. And, of course, water went everywhere. The funny thing was, it wasn't him, it was someone else in a blue shirt. But I thank God that it didn't hit him, because had it hit him, I'd have killed him. And I'd have ended up in prison. My life would have been totally changed. Now, one day, I was in the studio, and this girl came in, and I thought, wow, she's really nice. And I said to the other guys, who's that? And they said, oh, that's Sue. She works in Camping Magazine. Oh, right, okay. So I used to pop in there and find excuses to go in and have a look and everything. And one day I saw her outside by the lifts, and I said, oh, Sue, just wondering if you'd like to come out with me sometime, take you out for a meal or something. And she said, well, actually, I'm going away on holiday next week, so maybe ask me when I come back and I'll think about it. Well, I would have, had Sue said yes, I would have taken her out that Wednesday night, because Wednesday nights I used to go out to a place called the Wire Mill. And I had a little sports car, an Austin Healey Sprite. And I decided to go down to the Wire Mill as usual. I was driving down this perfectly straight road, and there was an entrance to the left of me, and a car was coming towards me with its lights on, and it was very bright and it dazzled me. So I pulled into this entrance a bit, but the other side, the verge came out further, so I had to pull out as I got to the verge to avoid it. Now, this car used to slide a bit if you moved it too quickly, and I got into a bit of a slide, and suddenly I was up on the bank, this side, on the verge, and then I shot across the road behind this other car and went through the hedge of a pub car park. And as I was going through the hedge, I felt the car starting to turn over. Now, I'd always been told that if you turned over a soft-top car, you knocked your head off. And I knew that if I turned this car over, I was going to die. And I was holding onto the steering wheel, going through and turning over like this, and I just cried out, Jesus, save me. Now, I wasn't a Christian at the time, but the next thing I knew, the car was upside down on the bonfire that had been alight all day. Petrol was everywhere from the car, but fortunately, the bonfire had gone out. My hands were trapped between the steering wheel and the earth beneath. But all of a sudden, I was standing outside the car, and I was looking towards the pub, and people were running out. Now, as I was looking towards them, I could see another figure beside me. Now, I don't know if that was Jesus, and I don't know if it was an angel, but I believe that had I not called out, Jesus, save me, I would have died that night. Well, as the people came over, got closer, I was suddenly back in the car. I'd never left the car, but my spirit had. And I managed to get out, crawl out the door, and I came out of it with a cut finger. Now, I should have come out of it. Well, I shouldn't have come out of it at all. I should have knocked my head off. But God protected me that night. Now, I didn't become a Christian because of it. Now, going on from there, Sue and I started going out. She came back from holiday. We went out for about 6 years. She used to pack me up regularly, and I used to just play the game and go out with someone else, let her know that I was going out with someone else, and then she used to usually come out with me again, and we'd take it up where we left off. And eventually she decided she would marry me. So we got married, and we moved into a little village in Sussex. Now, both of us had left Link House by this time. Sue had gone and worked. She was a journalist. She went and worked for a magazine in London as a fashion editor. I went freelance and worked in London, working for the magazines. And as I say, we moved into this little village in Sussex called Ardingly. Now, the thing about Ardingly was I had to catch the train up to London every day, and it was about a 45-minute journey and quite expensive. But the great thing about Ardingly was that this chap, Dave, who'd worked at Link House, who still worked at Link House, lived in the same village. Now, I found him difficult, but I didn't mind asking him for a lift every morning to Croydon to save me the money of my train fare. And Dave was very happy to give me a lift, and great that he did. The only trouble was there was a price to pay. Every morning he'd put on Christian tapes of preaching, and I'd have to listen to these tapes. No, I didn't mind that much. They were quite interesting. But every now and again he would say to me, "Oh, Tim, we've got this Christian dinner coming up. Why don't you come along? You and Sue come along. You'll really enjoy it. It's, someone will be given testimony and it'll be a good time." And I would always say, no, I really don't want to come, Dave. Now, one day he said to me, "Tim, we've got this really good speaker coming, this dinner coming up. Why don't you come along?" And I said, "Look, Dave, I really don't want to come." And he said, "Look, why don't you come just to shut me up? If you come to shut me up, I won't ask you again." And I said, "Well, look, what I'll do is I'll talk to Sue about it. And if she says yes, then we'll come along." So I talked to Sue and we decided we'd go to this dinner. Really, really didn't want to go. And I was really anti, quite honestly. So I'd looked in every place that I knew to discover what I was looking for. I didn't know what I was looking for. And my life was a case that every month practically, I would take up some new pastime, trying to find some sort of satisfaction. I didn't know that's what it was at the time, but anyway, I took up fencing, I took up archery, I took up tennis, I took up the guitar. I was going to be a rock star. I took up, I was going to join the SAS. Everything I tried lasted about a month at most. The only thing that lasted longer was spiritualism. I got heavily into spiritualism while I was at Link House, and I joined a spiritualist circle. I used to go along 3 times a week. I'd do trance, astral projection, psychometry, tarot, you name it, I did it, fortune telling. It wasn't great. The strange thing was we did this meditation, or anything we did, if we did trance or meditation or whatever, the guys that were running it would say, "Look, before you start, pray and ask Jesus to protect you." And I would pray and say, "Oh, Jesus, protect me." I was really scared, Now, thinking about it now, I think, well, why on earth would I think it's so good to do this if I had to ask Jesus to protect me? It seemed crazy. But anyway, I did that for about 6 months, and then I just left because I just felt it wasn't for me. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be or anything like that. I don't know. But again, it just lost interest. Anyway, we went along to this dinner. I have to say straight away, there's no way I was going to enjoy this evening. Although I didn't consciously think that, I don't think, I just had it in my mind, I don't really want to be here. In my mind, the meal was average, really average. Then everyone I looked at, I thought, they look miserable to me. And then after the meal, they started singing some Christian songs, and everyone jumped up and they're singing and raising their hands. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, what's wrong with this lot? You know, they're a bunch of wackos. Anyway, then the main speaker got up, and he was a very professional man. He was an architect. And he started speaking about this Jesus who did miracles in his life. And suddenly, I could relate to him, because this man was talking about the same Jesus that I'd heard of at 4 years old. And when he spoke about this Jesus, I thought, yes, that's it. And at the end of the time, he did what's called an altar call, and he said, if anyone here wants to ask Jesus into their lives, just pray this prayer with me. And, you know, I closed my eyes with everyone else, and I prayed this prayer. And a guy on another table suddenly burst into tears. And I'm praying, and I'm saying, oh God, don't let me do that. Don't let me cry. And because I felt really emotional. And fortunately, the moment passed, and I didn't cry. Anyway, he said, the next thing he said, look, if anyone's just prayed that prayer, can you just put your hand in the air, because I want to be able to pray with you. Anyway, I felt too embarrassed to put my hand in the air and just wouldn't do it. And he said, look, there's someone else here, I think, but, you know, we're going to move on. So we're sitting there talking to these friends who have now suddenly become friends. This guy's no longer a hypocrite. He's a friend of mine now. And all of a sudden, there's a hand on my shoulder. And I look round, and it's the speaker, and he just said, brother, tonight I believe the Lord's called you. And he said, would you come out and let me pray for you? Now, I knew he was right. I knew something had happened in me that, you know, I don't know what it was. Well, I didn't know what it was then. So I went out with him, but I was so embarrassed, standing in the middle of this floor with all the people sitting around and him praying for me. And I put my hands in my pockets, and I was so embarrassed, I wanted to whistle. But I didn't. Anyway, he prayed for me, committed me to the Lord, and prayed over me that God would bless me and all the rest of it. And we went home. And my mum and dad were looking after our kids, and they said, oh, what was it like? And I said, oh, it was so exciting. You know, it was so great. I was really excited about it. Now, my mum and dad had seen me go through all these other things. And evidently they're talking to each other, and they're saying, oh, what on earth has he got himself into this time? That was 43 years ago. I have to say, 43 years later, and I'm still a Christian. It was about 6 months after I became a Christian. I was in this small fellowship, and I decided I wanted to go off on a bender, and I went along to the fellowship, and I said, look, before you start, I just want to tell you I'm leaving. I'm going off on a bender. I want to enjoy my life before it gets too late and all the rest of it. Now, I was married with my son. You know, this wasn't the thing to do. So for the first 3 months, things carried on much the same as ever. Now, I was working in London still with a studio, with all the expenses to pay. Work was coming in, but not as much work coming in. So after 3 months, all the work dried up. I didn't do a single day's work for 3 months. There was no money coming in. All the money that had been owed, I spent. When the checks came in, I'd spent it again. I ran up a massive overdraft. The only phone that rang was from the bank. The letters that came in were from the bank. I'd never opened the letters. I didn't answer the phone. When it was the bank, I left it on answer phone. And tried to avoid the situation. Now, I had one check left owing to me, and no matter what I tried, I couldn't get it in. People would say, oh yes, it's in the post, but it never arrived. And time again, I tried to get it, but it didn't come. And eventually, one day the phone rang after 3 months, and I picked it up, and it was the bank manager. And he said, Tim, we'd like you to come in and see us about your account. I had no choice. I had to go and see him. So I went into the bank and he said, right, we'd like you to take your account away from us and find someone else to take your overdraft, which was a bit of a shock to me. But I said, well, can I have a week to think about it? And he said, yeah, go away for a week and think about it. Come back and tell me what you're going to do. So I went away and I was panicking, obviously. And I went and saw this friend of mine who happened to be a Christian, but also my accountant. And I told him what had happened, and he said to me, well, can't you see what's happening, Tim? God wants you back. And I said, well, God thinks he's going to get me back like this. He's got another thing coming. And I stormed out of the place. But I knew he was right. So that night, I went home and I locked myself in the bathroom and I got down on my knees because I just knew I couldn't carry on like this. And I got down on my knees and I just said, God, I don't know. I don't care what you do with my business. I don't care whether you save it or whether it goes under, but I just can't cope with this any longer. Please would you forgive me for all that I've been doing and for walking away like this. Would you forgive me and take me back, Lord, and help me never to walk away again, Lord. Instantly, I knew that God was beside me and that things were okay. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that something had changed. Anyway, I went to work the next day, and there on my desk was the cheque that I've been waiting for. Half an hour later, the phone rang, and it was Marks and Spencer's, and they said to me, Tim, we'd like you to come in and see us with your portfolio. We've got some work we'd like you to do for us. I went and saw them, started doing some work for them, and the great thing about Marks and Spencer's was, you'd go and work at their studio, they'd supply you with the film, they'd take the film at the end of the day, and they would process it so you had no expenses, and then they would say, have you got your invoice? You'd give them your invoice there, and then they'd sign it, and they'd say, take it upstairs to the bank, and they will give you the cash. Unheard of, that sort of thing. Anyway, God gave me so much work over the next 3 months. He doubled my best months taking ever for the next 3 months. So I'd never lost anything in that 3 months that I didn't work. God just blessed me. He gave me a strategy for the bank. I went and saw the bank the next week, and the chap said, okay, so what are you going to do, Tim? And I said, well, what I want to do is I want to open another account. I want to open a loan account, and I want you to put my overdraft in that. Then what I also want to do is have a current account, and every cheque that comes in, I put it into the current account. I want you to take 25% of it and put it in the loan account to clear the debt. And I won't overdraw. And he said, well, do you think you can do that? And I said, yes, I do. Now, I didn't really know whether I could or not, but, I really felt God had given me this. And he said, okay, we'll do that. You can keep your account here. We'll do what you said, and let's see you do it. And so I did. And for the next 3 months, God blessed me so much. Got to the stage where I was saying, God, please, would you not give me so much work, because I don't want to fall away from you because I'm so busy. Anyway, in a very short space of time, I cleared my overdraft. I decided I would not borrow money again. I would not buy things on credit. I would not run up debts. I would pay as I went. And everything turned around from that point. Now, during this time, I'd been going along to these dinner meetings with my friend Dave and being part of the meetings, but I'd never wanted to join the organisation. There was an organisation called the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International. And we'd have these meetings every month. Now, there was a book called The Happiest People on Earth. I'd been given a copy of this book, and I'd never wanted to read it. But one day, I was going up to London. I used to read books on the train. And this morning, I was late for the train, and I hadn't got a book. I'd finished the last one the day before. And I rushed upstairs. Sue was going to drop me off at the station. I'm looking for a book, and I run my finger along the bookcase, and there was nothing there. I came across the happiest people, and I thought, oh, I don't want to read that. And carried on and went back again, and there was nothing. And then I came back to it. Oh, I'll take it. Got on the train, sat down, took my book out, and the girl sitting opposite said to me, have you read that book before? You are going to love it. It is such a good read. Oh, that sounds interesting. Anyway, I started reading the book and felt led to join the Full Gospel Businessmen Fellowship. Now, the first meeting I went along to as a member was a business meeting. And to be honest, it was a real shambles. There was a bit of a falling out with a couple of the guys because someone wasn't doing things that they should do, and it wasn't a good situation. Anyway, God spoke to us through a prophetic word and told people to sort themselves out, basically. And then he said, if you will do whatever I ask you, I will bless you more than you can ever believe. Anyway, the next morning I was going to work on the train again, and suddenly this came back to me, and I thought, well, that was for me as well, that word. Not the bit where everyone was told off, because I don't see myself as being part of that, because I've only just joined. But that bit about, if you will do whatever I ask you, I will bless you more than you can ever believe. Well, I said to God, okay, God, if that's for me as well, what would you like me to do? And straight away into my mind came the word prisons. I thought, okay, you want me to go into prison, do my Billy Graham bit. When I get to work, or when I get to London, I'll go to Wormwood Scrubs maybe, and do whatever you want there. But then I prayed and said, Lord, well, where do you want me to go? And he again came into my mind, Lewis. And I thought, well, actually that makes sense, because Lewis is just down the road from where I live, and there's a prison there. So I thought, well, when I get to the studio, I'll phone up and I'll make arrangements to go in and see them. Well, I got to the studio and there were people in there all day long, and I was far too embarrassed to ring up and say, look, God's told me to come in and see you and do my Billy Graham bit. So on the way home, it was a Friday, I thought, oh, I didn't do it. I'll do it over the weekend when I'm at home. Now, Sue wasn't a Christian at the time, and again, I was embarrassed to ring up. So got to Monday morning and I'm on the train, and all of a sudden it came back to me, and I thought, oh, I did say I'd do it, but I really don't know that was you saying that to me, God. But I will do it. When I get to the studio, I will ring up today. But if that's really you, I want the name of the governor of Lewes Prison. Now, straight away into my mind again came Brown. And I thought, well, Brown Smith Jones, that's my imagination. That's the sort of thing you imagine in England if you're thinking of someone's name quickly. Anyway, I got to the studio, no one around at all. So I picked up the phone, got through to Lewes Prison, the governor's office, and spoke to his secretary and said, can I speak to the governor? She said, oh, I'm sorry, he's not here at the moment, he's on his rounds, but if you want to ring back about quarter to 12, he'll be back then and you can have a chat with him. And I said, oh, that's great, I'll do that. I was just about to put the phone down. I said, oh, by the way, what's his name? And she said, oh, it's Dennis Brown. I tell you, I was leaping around the studio. I was so excited because God had spoken to me on the train from Haywards Heath to Victoria and told me the name of the governor of Lewes Prison. I didn't know anyone to do with prison, ever. It was amazing. God opened up the door there and he did amazing things in that place. Why am I a Christian still? 43 years after I became a Christian? Because it works. Because I've seen God do miracles. I've seen him heal the sick. I've seen him heal terminal cancer. I've seen him change the weather. I've seen him provide cars. I've seen him, just so many things. Give wisdom on things that I couldn't possibly know. The God I serve is a God of miracles. And I would just encourage you to ask him to come into your life and dare to believe that he is the God of the Bible, the God who does miracles, the God who raises the dead, the God who heals the sick, the God who is above everything else. All you've got to do is say, Jesus, would you come into my life? Would you forgive me all my sins and save me? Help me to live my life for you and turn my life around, Lord. Jesus, I commit my life to you. Thank you for coming into my life. Thank you. Thanks for watching.